Welcome to this episode of Prophecy for the Last Hour. My name is Liz McGee, and I am going to share some more just deep understandings I'm trying to understand from the Word of Yahweh. So I've been talking a little bit about, I'm kind of on this threefold kick of trying to understand Paul and how he fits with the Torah and the New Covenant and the early church and the players there. I'm also trying to align that with these different worlds. We live, as I would say, a very populated world. We are not, while we are the apple of Yah's eye, we are not the only living beings in this whole cosmos. And I'm also, now I'm going more into the soul. It's been said, it should be a very common understanding. We are made up of a body, a soul, and a spirit, sort of a New and Old Testament. But the thing is, when you delve deeply into these words, so this is one of my things where, one of the great things that's happening today is people are understanding that understanding Hebrew and the progression. I mean, seriously, Hebrew was wiped off the planet. It was not a primary language for anyone until about 150 years ago. And then, really through the ministry of one man, a Jew who started living in Israel, brought back Hebrew as a common language and started teaching it to the people. And now it's back on the radar, and deep Bible scholars or researchers are realizing that the truth is really in the Hebrew. We have to learn the Hebrew because it's in the letters, it's in the root systems, it's in the words they make, and it's in its polysemous nature. Hebrew is a unique language. It is a language that is so polysemous. There are so many levels to words, and there are so many words to describe so many of the nuances of this whole great dynamic we are in called life. So with that being said, sticking with the body, soul, and spirit, because the problem we have in Greek, because most of us as Gentile believers or New Testament, we've been schooled in Greek translations, which is a lot of part of our problem, because Greek is not polysemous like Hebrew. One of the things is like the word law. There's only one word, nomos, in law, or nomos, a Greek word for law, which can mean the Mosaic law, or it can mean just law, general law. And yet, even in Hebrew, you just read in the Psalms, there's about 10 words that unpack more of like the law. You have ordinance, commandments, testimonies. There are so many words, precepts, ordinances that go into this whole concept of law. So to just take one word and plug it in, it's not like these words do us a disservice. So we get in our head what we think the word means, like law. And so every time we see it, especially in the New Testament, we say, oh, that's what the Mosaic law, that's it, that's what it's talking about. Paul is throwing out the Mosaic law. Well, that's not true. And this is the problem. So one part of recovering these nuances is learning Hebrew, which I have to say I've sort of fallen off the wagon because I was really learning it and getting going really fast. And then, so many other things came in and I have to get back to it. So it's not like I'm some great Hebrew scholar. I want you to understand it, but at least I understand, and my husband and I are actually going to really, really, really make an effort. That being said, another Greek word, spirit. There's, pneuma, and you get a couple of pneumatikas, but that is, and then we go into the Hebrew, and there are so many, and that's what I'm going to unpack today. The word spirit, the word soul and spirit are not necessarily synonymous. Sometimes they're used synonymously, which is confusing, but actually they're totally different concepts and represent different things. So when we say we're made from body, soul, and spirit, it's actually a fairly complex subject matter. But let's see how simplified I can make it today. So according to Hebrew, this is what I mean, the Hebrew philosophy, they have a deep, Ephraimite, we're getting grafted back into a root system that's been growing for thousands of years. And we severed ourselves from that root system about 1,800 years ago. Now, this is all historical, and you can say it in many different ways. That's how I like to say it. We were getting grafted back in very nicely to the root system, which was the scribal house of Judah, and understanding the Old Testament, beginning to learn. But, the thing got taken away by this wave of the Gentiles, okay? But what we see is that we're coming back to understanding it really is a Hebrew word. It has a Hebrew mindset. It has a Hebrew philosophy. The Jews have been at this for way longer than we have, and we need to go back. I've said this many times, so I won't say it again. Anyways, because there's some phrases that have really bothered me when you read, and I do read in the Talmud. I believe that everything is good in this, is that you can glean great truths and understandings from all the writings. But, there's this saying called the soul of the Jew is higher, or that there's sort of this dichotomy between the soul of the Jew and the soul of a beast. Now, beast, people understand now, beast is a reference for the Gentile nations. That sounds so elitist. That sounds like, oh my gosh, that's so politically incorrect to say today. You read and you cringe, like, oh my gosh, what are they saying? The soul of the Jew versus the soul of the beast. Well, this is an important concept, all right? And I'm going to try to unpack it. So, enough of all these little rabbit trails. I feel like I just have to kind of set the stage. According to the words, you take all the words that swirl around this body, soul, and spirit concept. The Jews have come up with these words represent basically 5 levels of our soul. All right? See, Hebrew, we got one. I mean, in Greek, you just kind of got this one thing. You got a pneuma, you got a soul, spirit. But it's much more nuanced and beautiful and deeper than that. All right? So there's 5 parts to our soul. All right? And the word shows this, but you have to dig. And so when I say, what I'm trying to also is reclaim some of the ways in which words are used, 3 trigger words that are very offensive to many people today, which we need to kind of grow up and get past. The word initiate, the word Gnostic, and the word occult, because all these words circling around all this concept is this concept of just deep Torah study. You're not going to get this understanding. This is when you just cursory read your Bible, you're going to get a 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade education, but if you want to get to the deep meat of the word, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of study. That's all that's implied. A lot of these inputs, like I say, are hidden in word. So if you didn't ever look at the Hebrew or know these things, how would you know that there were so many levels of nuance and understanding? All right, all this being said, you have a nephesh. We have a nephesh soul. We have a ruach part of our soul. We have a ha-neshama part of our soul. And then the last 2, there is and I don't even want to say this, haya, C-H-A-Y-A part of the soul, and a yakida part of the soul. Now I'm really just going to unpack the first 3. Our nephesh, our ruach, and our ha-neshama. And that's going to go into the Hebrew and kind of explain it from there. But I want to give you just first also an object lesson, because see, this is another part that's so developed about the Hebrew mind. Everything relates to everything. So symbols, and this is why we have understanding and also grow up and understand how symbols are just loaded and packed with arcane knowledge. And it's not a bad thing. But if you don't, you miss so much if you don't have the deep background and backdrop of what that symbol is showing and how the Hebrews use parables and images and symbols to so express in pictographically some of these deeper understandings. So let me show you the 3 levels of the soul I was just talking about in a very common pictograph to everyone, okay? So let me just pull this up real quick. Okay, so what is that? That is a lighted menorah, right? I've seen it many times, but in this imagery, let me just show you, is this whole concept of the soul. The Hebrews work a lot in triads, 3s. So I said body, soul, and spirit. We know in the Godhead, you have Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You have, so 3s are very common paired up analogies together. But if you look closely at this, and I had to do another teaching, actually this is really representing the Sephiroth, the emanations of Yah. I did a teaching called The Seven Spirits of Yah that you should, if you'd like, go back and find in the playlist and read. Most people who have listened to, I am into Jewish mysticism. I'm into Jewish Kabbalah to a large extent because it is packed with understanding and with telling you the deeper meanings behind all these images. So let's just stick with this. You see the candle, the flame. So many times the references are talking about the light, you know, the candle flame. There's a lot of imagery packed into this. But in our soul, the first three parts, the nephesh, the ruach, and the ha, and it means the, ha means the neshama. The lower light, so if you see this candle, it starts out here at the very bottom, there's a black light. It's called the black light. And it cleaves to the wick. It's very closely aligned in the black, in the color part here. So black, and the color that's around it is very closely, it's at the bottom. That is our nephesh soul. That's cleaved to the wick. So think of the wick as our actual body. And this is sort of a light emanating. Our soul is a light. It's an invisible part of us, first of all. So the light that we're actually seeing here is a whole pictorial of the soul. So you have what they call the lower light, which is related, and I will unpack this, to our nephesh, which is this lower blackish, deeply colored light down here. It cleaves to the wick. It symbolizes nephesh, which is our zoe light. It represents the body. This is the part of our soul life that is absolutely connected. And I shouldn't get ahead of myself. I just want to show you this. So I'm going to unpack that. Then you come into this area of the white light. Okay, this symbolizes the ruach part of our soul. Okay, which ruach, most people, is spirit. So we've gone down here from a nephesh soul into a ruach soul. And then the third part is I hope you can see it a little bit. There's a halo. Let's see if I can even get this a little bigger. There is a halo. See that orangish halo color around? That is symbolized the neshama, which is the highest level of the soul. All right. And this whole makes a flame, right? But within this are like three levels here. See, this is what the Hebrews would see in nature. Everything in nature is actually a pictograph. Everything visible is actually a pictograph of something spiritual. And we understand this from the temple. Like he said, everything was made according to a type, a pattern of something in the heavenly realms. So this is here what I'm showing on our soul, three parts of our soul depicted in this lit menorah. So let's go back to, now, one other concept I want that's very important to understand, trying to understand how Yahweh, he builds. We use words like it's called a throne upon a throne, or a garment upon garment. He clothes himself in light. One of the most important concepts, it says that we have this, a treasure in an earthen vessel. There is always a vessel, a container, a body, a tent, something that houses something even more ephemeral? No, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, ethereal. Okay, so the soul, the white light here, let's say. So it's a throne upon, so what I'm saying, the nephesh is a throne or is a seat for the next level, the white light, which acts as a throne or a seat or a container or a garment for the next level, which would be the Ha Neshama, which is barely visible around the edges of this. And then, so I won't even get into the quote unquote the outer darkness all around, but whatever. So let me go in now and unpack. I thought that was interesting. I hope you liked it. But anyways, see, because those three levels, this is why I'm into Jewish philosophy, because it represents three levels of, in the Sephiroth, which is sort of the emanations of it, the way Yah, he wraps himself. This is one of the things, it's biblical. It's, in other words, he wraps himself in light. He contains himself in different modes, different containers. You didn't get into this. This is when Yeshua came as the Son of Man. That was his container. He took on a container of flesh. I mean, these are concepts that I hope we can begin to, with ease, just understand. So the lowest sephir, the black light also, and see, this is where, okay, let me say it first. The black light represents, and it's dense. This is when it's full of matter and materiality. Remember I said it's the closest part of our soul to the wick, to our actual container. It's the first level, and it's very material. It's full of matter, it's dense, it's dark. They call it the black, it's black. It is, and Shekinah is here, okay? Then you go into the next light, the white light I showed you is Tiferet, which is really Yad-Heh Vav-Heh, which is the sun in his full manifestation, all of his, the seven spirits of Yah. That is his complete and total container as the sun, so to speak. And then you go up, you move up into that outer, the Ha Neshama. It says it is Bina, which is the invisible, supernal, heavenly light, the mother of us all. Now, the soul, I will tell you, go just do your Strong's Bible study, in the sense they're all feminine nouns. They're all feminine words that are describing this. Shekinah, the soul, Bina, these are all feminine. There is an aspect, the feminine aspect of Yah. Now, I'm not gonna, I've unpacked that in some YouTube, but that's not what this is about. But you can't, we just can't play stupid and just say, oh, there's no feminine, God has no female aspect. Well, then why is it in our Bible? Let's try to understand. Let's get wisdom and understanding from on high and try to understand what they understood, the people who wrote our text, okay? So let's go back here to Nefesh, which is, let's say, the wick, the black light. And see, this is where we would understand we save ourselves so much when the word uses words like black or white. It's not talking about race or male and female. It's not even talking about gender. These are archetypes. These are philosophical concepts describing supernal, invisible things, okay? So we're not, okay. So a nephesh is the part of the person that actually goes to the grave. This is when my soul went down to the pit. Your nephesh. Nephesh is very close to the carnal. It's very close, this is why I said, to the soul of a beast. Okay, a nephesh is called your lower soul. The nephesh and the ruach, and that's ruach with a small r, okay, is the lower soul. And these two together, this part of the body, this part of the two lower parts of the soul, the nephesh, and these are biblical words, and I'll give you the numbers in Strong so you can look them up. The nephesh, it's the word for soul, translated, and it's Strong's 5315. It's nephesh. It is the life force of the body. It talks about, it's the animation. It's the program, the first program that animates the container. Okay, so and this is the whole thing with, even with AI, this is what's so crazy about this thing. They're making bodies, they're making containers, they're filling them with intelligence, AI, and they're able to animate them. But the third question is, they will never be able to put into them the higher soul, the Ha Neshama. Praise the Lord, but we'll get to that. So this is the soul part that, when it talks about the appetites, the emotions, the likes, the dislikes, there's words when you're looking to Strong that are very, the appetites, these are very closely tied with the body. We have, it vitalizes this. There's a word called Zoe life. Zoe life. It's the animated, the first life that gives. It's the first level, first program of the soul life that gives animation and vitality and life to this container. Okay. It is feminine. It is full of materiality, and these two, nephesh and ruach, are bonded together. So everybody comes into this world with a body and a soul, in the sense of a basar. These are Hebrew words, basar, with a flesh, and with a nefesh. And they're bonded together. They are a unity. The nefesh is like I said, it's our life force. Now, what's really hard about these translations, and especially when you're doing this in Greek, you have, okay, it should be translated soul. They have other words for body, like basar is a word for flesh. There's two words, basar, and I can't remember what the second word for, like, for flesh, for body, for the physical, literally, what you can see, the part of us that we can see, which is our body. The part you can't see, but is 100% attached to that body, is the nefesh, and it really should be translated soul, because it makes it so easy. You have a body and then you have a soul. There are two programs are running, and they're indivisible. Once you lose your connection, once the connection between the two is severed at death, it's just like pull the plug on a electronic doll, and she just all of a sudden, it has to be. Okay. But in Genesis, it starts out in Genesis, this first word is first used, and I'm going to get into there and unpack it to you, is in Genesis 1:20. There's a very important word that is used together, and it's living creature. Now, see, this is the thing, which they always translate this word, which is soul, nefesh, as creature, which is so misleading, because it's talking about, and they do this because it's talking about birds and reptiles and cattle, and what are those but creatures? But see, this is what's so, if you want to get a little deeper into this thing, a little deeper understanding, these are not necessarily, on one level, yes, we have cattle, I'm not denying, but these are talking about different living beings, soul lives. This is how the word is polysemous. These words are encoded and they're encrypted, and they have many levels of understanding. So when it talks about in Genesis, instead of creature, it would be better to use the word soul. So we are now, and on the fifth day, and I'll go to, on the fifth day, we have our first manifestation of a living soul. Now, this is where we're going to move out from this. Did I tell you the word? If you want to check me, it's nefesh 5315. Okay. Into the ruach. So these two are always paired together. You have the word ruach now, which is the word, or it is the Strong's 17. Which one was it? Oh dear, I had ruach is 7307. See, because the spirit we have, it's, in the phrase like we all have a spark of the divine. Well, get over it. We do all have a spark of the divine. This is part of the growth. We are running on a certain aspect or manifestation or part of the Godhead. Okay, because that's what makes life. He is life. So if you're going to have any kind of life animation to you, you've got to have a piece at least. So there's a small s. This is a small ruach we have. It's the spirit of man. All right, every man has a little piece of this spirit so that he can run, so he can be an animated, creation here. So this word we're first using in this sense is ruach, not with a capital R, or not like you put the word holy in front of it. When you're talking about holy, the ruach hakodesh, that's the Holy Spirit. That's like a whole different animal. Okay, that's a whole different philosophical. We're talking about the small r, the spirit of man. All right, a program that he puts in us to give us animation. So this ruach spirit, and this is where, when you understand this philosophy, all these words that get used begin to make sense, and they begin to flow into this like philosophical whole. Okay, the ruach is more now where we get into it's translated like a soul, flesh, creature, life, persons. It's always paired. When it starts in Genesis 1:20, which is the first place on the fifth day that this pairing of living soul is used, on the fifth and the sixth day, it's always paired with a word called che, Strong's 2416, which means an age. And that's a whole huge, and we can do a lot with this word che, but it just means living. And what's implying here is this soul has to kind of separate it from the spirit of Yahweh Elohim, which is, it has no ending, it's eternal. Our spirits are not necessarily eternal. That's part of the story. We were, but we're not now. So there is a nuanced understanding in this, that this word living is paired with the word triche, which means a duration, which means it's used a lot. It's translated a lot of times in the word live. So Adam lived 930 years, or Methuselah lived. That was his duration of time, his age. That was the age. And that's where you get the word age. That's how long his age lasted. This is all kind of wrapped up in this word. So these living souls, and it's kind of this concept of revolution. See, there's a lot of deep stuff in this. You get one generation passes and another one comes. There is a concept of revolution. Ages just keep cycling and cycling. But this is the Ruach. Now, in the Ruach also is a concept that this is our emotional world, because we're body. So the lower nephesh soul is all concerned with the things of the body. It's all about me, body. I'm hungry, you feed me. I'm cold, you make me warm. The body is constantly telling the nephesh what it needs and what it wants. This is the whole idea of carnality. And if your cravings, your appetites, we're supposed to keep this thing in check, because it can get out of control. I can see that I'm kind of disappearing. I'm getting so spiritual, right? That my whole left shoulder is disappearing on this thing. I don't know. I've never gotten the lighting quite right, but I like to think that I'm starting to be what would be the word, change, my molecular structure, but that's not the case. It's just I'll get it figured out someday. So I hope that isn't too distracting. But anyways, this Ruach is paired with, as I said, an age, a duration, and this word Ruach is where we also get a higher ordered program that runs, that now we have an emotional. So your nephesh likes it all about your appetites. All right. The next level, the Ruach, is from where we have an emotional stance. We kind of move up the ladder a little bit in a greater capacity to filter and to understand the world around us, and we're in the pure sense, because it's very much paired up with the word heart. Okay, for out of the heart, two great verses you should probably all know. For out of the heart come the issues of life, and for the pure in heart shall see God. In this part, in our Ruach, is the things in the good sense that we can experience with Yahweh, our creator, mercies, compassions, kindness, where we can have an inner life. This is where our character is. This is where the seat of our will and of our intentions. So this is all wrapped up in the word heart. It's many times referred to as the inward parts. It's many times used, biblically referred to as the bowels. Okay, and the bowels is sort of the middle torso. It's like from, here down to just above your legs. It's sort of your torso. And this is a part of the Sephirah that is ruled by Tiferet, which is a whole, again, our heart, a manifestation of a domain of Yad-Heh, Vav-Heh. And we are to love him, love Yad-Heh, Vav-Heh, out of our heart. This is where we can really feel his mercies, his compassions, his kindness. In an inner life, we can begin to worship him. We're past our appetites, and we're now beginning to really look up. We're functioning from a higher soul life. So this is your Ruach. And this is referred to as white light. Remember when I showed you in the candle, the bottom base was black light. That's how this is what they're pictorially explaining. It's very carnal, it's very dense, it's full of materiality. The next light, the Ruach, it's light. It is actually white light. We're moving up the ethereal realms. We're into white light now. We're into, and it's also paired with this concept of the day. When he separated the day from the night. And these are just, you have to understand these words I'm trying from a philosophical, but that's how they're being used. Ruling by day. This is the spirit that is ruling from Tiferet, okay, which is a place, which is a, and I use place not like geographically, but from a dimension. So like I said, our soul, we're starting from the bottom and we're going up. This is where it needs to climb Jacob's ladder. If you get in touch with your soul and begin to build a ladder or build an access to Yahweh Elohim, where he is up in the high heavens, okay? We're just still basically boots on the ground of nephesh and our appetites, and now we're beginning to have some in touch with our ruach soul nature, where we have with our emotional world, from which we can love Yahweh with all our heart, love Yahweh and love your neighbor. These are getting to more ethical and ethereal. You can't, we're past materiality. You can't put these things under a microscope, but this is where, in my opinion, we need to become more like sages and stop playing stupid and pretend that these domains, these realms are not part of us. Okay, can't keep separating. And so anyway, so this is where the Ruach. Now let me go into the third part, which is the Ha-Neshama, the higher soul. Now, and this is where it gets into this concept of the soul of the Jew versus the soul of a beast. Okay? This is part of the story. And if you see, this way, you can never take things out of context, but our context is usually more than, a verse or a chapter, a paragraph or a chapter. Our context is really the whole work of Yahweh. The more context you get, in other words, the more backdrop, the more understanding, the more you understand the different, the greater context you can have, and the less your chances of error are. Okay, so the Ha-Neshama, it is the word breath. Okay, so this is what the breath of Yahweh. So this is why some people will say that Adamic man has breath. The beasts do not have breath. They do not have this higher level soul life. Okay, they don't have this program. So the breath, which is the word in Strong's 5397. This is a word, and it refers to the higher soul, like it is translated. It is the Hebrew word neshama. Okay, we had nephesh, not to be confused with nephesh. Now we have ha-nefeshma, neshama. Okay, breath. This is an invisible light. This domain, this program. Sometimes you just run out of words to describe this dimension, this realm, this place that we can take our mind, our soul, we can contemplate it, is higher. It's in the Sephirah of Bina. It actually is, Bina represents our Heavenly Mother. It is a place for the higher soul, the invisible light. This is what was breathed into the Adamic man that separated him from the other creatures or living souls that were created. So if you read your Genesis text, and I'm going to get into that, you can see how what the words are used to describe something that's really deep, but it'll help explain some of these, almost like fairy tale stories. Okay. Now, this enters into and prevails over the lower two levels of the soul life. But this is a person, when a person taps into, all right, let me just put it this way. This is what the Gentiles lost. All right, this is in my last video. If you're interested, go back and listen to it. I'm explaining how Paul is talking about we are free from the law of sin and death. That is not the Mosaic law. That isn't what he was talking about. So I said you can get the bigger context, the whole plan of salvation. That it says First Peter, we are now being spoken to by the Son is speaking to us directly. Yeshua, salvation is in him. It's in the name Yeshua. He came. He did something very specific. It actually affected all of these different realms. it reconnected for the Gentiles their ha-neshama soul life. They could now get that program back, because when they were divorced, when Israel, especially because Israel went off into the Gentiles, but it goes back even further. After the flood, there was such rebellion again with Nimrod and on the earth. Whole pockets of the repopulation refused again to acknowledge Yahweh Elohim as the creator God, to follow his precepts, commandments, laws, and ordinances. They refused to live in an orderly, civilized, non-violent way, all this stuff. So he said, fine, you go up, and I'm going to give you other gods. This is what he said, the 70 shepherds you're going to live and be subject to, and they're going to quote unquote watch over you. If you want quote unquote other gods, you can have them, but I'm going to assign them. These are going to be them. And that was at a point where there became a separation in the earth. That's the deeper level what it's talking about. So going forward, they cut themselves off from God. They did their own free will. They refused. They cut themselves off from this higher soul, like the ha-neshama. They followed other gods who are not gods, other Elohims who are not really Elohim. But the point is, they stopped functioning at the higher soul level. Okay? The ha-neshama. Israel went on. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, the 12 tribes, the nation, they took on the Torah. They continued with the Father, Creator, in a relationship of their soul life, their ha-neshama. Okay, now how it makes it, because what you understand is this, so when it talks about the soul of a beast, animals have a nephesh and they have a ruach. Okay, this all living beings have a nephesh and a ruach. All right, they are living souls. Okay, and this goes into all the different categories of created angels, of all the angelic beings, everything that he created. But the soul of the Jew, this is the point. So what I'm trying to is this is what they're trying to say, maybe not so politically correct, whatever. But this is why it was so good news for the Gentiles. And when Paul is trying to say, look at Gentiles, he has made a way for you to be grafted back in, to be able to tap into, and that was the whole point of the new birth. He would give them a download of the Spirit. He would plug them back in to this program, the ha-neshama, which is, this is why it says a person is called holy. There's a verse that says in Matthew 5:48, it says, be ye perfect, even as our heaven or your heavenly Father is perfect. What this is saying is a person who is running on the program, so to speak, from the higher soul, the upper soul life, that enters into and prevails over the lower two. So first of all, there's this concept that you become a master of your own house. See, this is a lot of the type of talking about, being a master of your own house. You no longer rule by your appetites, your ruach, your house is in order, your emotional life, you are the pure in heart, you have, you're not, okay? And now this person is called holy. This is where it comes with the holiness. So now this person called holy, he's perfect. This person is this is what the word perfect is referring to. It's someone who is perfect as their heavenly Father is perfect. In other words, this is the breath of Yahweh. This is what he has. This is what he gave us truly that separated Adam from the animals. And we're not talking about animals like in the barnyard. I am talking about other species of living souls, angelic ordered beings. Okay? So when it's saying that because a person in this category who has mastered the lower two souls and is functioning out of running their program sort of out of this higher soul, this breath that is in us, this is a mature, ripe fruit. This is why be mature. And the concept is like, you don't eat the fruit. When a fruit is mature, when it's fully ripe, when it's fully developed, when it's something beautiful, when it, and this is, see, so I want you to understand how these words, what's loaded, the concept behind some of these words, because soul and fruit are synonymous. So when your soul life is fully mature, when it's perfect, it's its highest order of development. And this is what, and you're holy, you're perfect, you're mature, you're beautiful. Okay, he has made everything beautiful in its time. So I hope that helps to unflush these nuances in these things, because it's very, very important. Now, just quickly, so as I said, the ruach is where our emotional seat, the seat of our will, of our intentions, comes from. The ha neshama in this one is in the intellect. This is where we have understanding, and this is why it also says that the spirit of Yah, the natural man, the lower, the soul life, the beast, quote unquote, that only has the nefesh and the ruach at the lower level, the karma cannot understand the things of Yahweh in this breath category. See, this is where we use an intelligence that it's like a program that comes with, that is made up of the breath of Yahweh, which is very developed, and where you can access the deep things of Yah. This is where we can understand, spiritually receive. Now, spiritual wisdom and revelation knowledge. And this is where we can contemplate eternal things of life. When you get to this point, the Ruach, this is where you're beginning to enter this realm. When it's like, it says, when the things of this world become strangely dim. When, it doesn't really matter. You're not running after fads or appetites or the things of this world, the pride of life, the lust of the flesh. Doesn't mean anything. You're looking up, you're gazing at the heavenly realms. Oh my God, they're just so awed. And the things of this world become strangely dim. In the eternal things of life, this is now what floats your boat. That's where you know that you are entering into the true soul life of, quote unquote, they call the Jew. Okay, we're getting grafted into this place. So I hope that all makes sense. Now, there's two more levels above that, okay? And I just, listen, I can hardly comprehend that. Okay, but I'll just tell you what they are. So there's the word Chaya, C-H-A-Y, C-H-A-Y-A. Now this is the next kind of level up. So once you begin to meditate and contemplate and live in a place in the mind of the things of Yahweh, all right, the eternal things. Next thing you come where your spirit, your soul, you commune with Yah. This is where there is actually a complete state of unity. You don't just know about him. You kind of know him. You exist. It's Yah exists and I exist in him. There's really, the separation now is much less defined. You're entering into a state of complete nullification of the ego. This is a place where, there's no more self-seeking or self-identity outside of Yah. You and Yah are like this. Okay? You're a living essence. You live and you breathe and you eat and you sleep, everything. What pleases him, and you just live in this state. And it's beautiful. Maybe some of us get there a little bit. We get little glimpses of this once in a while in our walk with the Father. But this is ultimately, there's a place of the soul of complete communion, of higher communion after Ha Neshama has been kicked in, so to speak. Then there is this place, the fifth level of the soul, they call it Yechida, Y-E-C-H-I-D-A. And it is a place of literally where this gets the word of at one mint. This is where you are literally, it's in him. I live and move and have my being. Live, move, have being. These are, again, the three levels of the soul. Reflects the original primordial infinite light. You are in the light. You live in the light. And Yeshua, this is where Yeshua lived. He was living in the light. He was the light. He and the Father were one. There was no division, no shadow of turning. This was amazing. Some of our great patriarchs maybe, attained it, but Yeshua lived there. He was at a complete place of peace, of at one with the Father. So I think it's really all beautiful. But again, it's really important to flesh these deeper meanings out and to understand the difference. And just sticking with the first three, we have a container, a body, a basar, a flesh. We have a nephesh, which is our first level of animation, which is where all appetites are, where and it's very carnal. Animals have this too. And then you go into the ruach, which is the next level up, which is where we of our emotional being, where we can begin to relate to things that are outside of immediate physical. We can begin to have compassion on another being. We can begin to have kindness. Flip side is, and then again, there's always a flip side. These souls the levels of our can be corrupted. This is the point. So we don't serve him with a pure heart, for out of the heart of the issues, like we're getting into adultery and fornications and every evil work. These programs are getting distorted. This is with the sin nature. I mean, that's another whole thing, because on the flip side of all this, there is sin nature that runs through these soul programs too. But that was not necessarily today's. We'll get to that. But praise Yahweh. See that he made a way in so many levels. He made peace on so many levels. But again, it's so important to understand the neshama, soul life, that the new birth is he made a new covenant. He was able to literally supra, above, natural, supernaturally kind of replug us into our higher soul life. Okay, that's why, they say the soul of the Jew doesn't really necessarily need to get, born again. This whole kind of, there's a lot of, and even we're still trying to flush out a lot of these deep things, because there's a lot to this. Like I said, context is, Messiah ben Joseph, Messiah ben David, the plan of salvation, the players. You have the Gentiles, the Jews. You have the first elect, the first group, the called out ones in these 2 days. So there are many, many nuances, and this is what I mean with the Greek. You just can't. It's not one word or one concept fits everything. These are very deep, nuanced understanding. So anyways, I want to do a quick run through of Genesis, because see, again, if we want to grow up into some of these, like I said, these deeper level understanding of how these words are encrypted, these polysemous words, and why it's important with living souls. So in Genesis 1, well, in the beginning, and it's really with beginning, Yahweh created the heavens and the earth. It was like a huge summary. I mean, you could close the whole Bible right there. I mean, that's really the whole point. He made the heavens and the earth, and it fits with the last verse, and he's renewing the heavens and the earth. You can close the book, and then like everything in between that it's all about what happened, how he did that, everything that's in between those two statements. But if you really read it closely, and then we get day 1, day 2, day 3, 4, 7 days. Okay, now from a Hebraic point of view, I should just say these are not literally 24 hours. The word day is again attached to this word of che, like a duration of time. So the Hebrews understand there's a very much cyclical nature to time. Time it's linear, but it's circular. Okay, so it's moving in it seems to be a straight line. It looks like it's straight to you because it's so huge, the epoch, so it looks straight, but it's actually curving and going around again. With what once was will come around again. Okay, he will let known the end from the beginning. This is the concept of circular. So in the mind, this is what I love about the polysemous mind of Yahweh. It's circular and it's linear all at the same time. Go figure. Okay. Oh my gosh, enough of this stuff. If you were to read closely, you will find out something, that spirit and waters are nothing that's created. They're just like there. Okay. So each of these words is a loaded, and a lot of this, I'll just tell you, if you want to read something, read Philo. Philo is great. Philo Judaeus was a brilliant Hebraic scholar, sage. I don't know if he was a priest. I can't remember. Kabbalist at the time of Yeshua. And his writings are preserved for us today. And that can really give us a picture of exactly where the believing Torah scholar was at that point in time. The believing, okay? Spirit and waters are not anything part of this whole that's created or that comes into being, all right? So I just want to say that so you can, and spirit is a word, it's feminine. Waters is a word, it's masculine. So already, right from the get-go, we have this, I don't want to use the word duality, but it is sort of a duality. It's binary. I want to use the word, it's a binary system is already in place here. And he starts with day one. In day one, he in supernal, and you have to understand that first of all, there's nothing visible. There's no way your physical eyes or ears or anything could actually even begin to comprehend. You weren't even, you were just like a thought still in Yahweh. So there's no way that any lower level human being is going to be able to see this world, literally, hear this world. We can conceptualize it. We can get our brain to a place where we can begin to wrap our mind around words that give us concepts, that give us symbols, that give us pictures, that give us archetypes, that give us some kind of semblance of, wow, how unbelievably big this thing is. So day one, you have a supernal, you have heaven and earth, okay? And we're not talking, again, that's what I want to say, about the visible heavens we see, the sky, or the visible earth when I go out there and see grass. See, that's not how, these words are way higher than that. They're like way above that. They're more simple, sublime, meaning in just, and I've said this before, simple doesn't mean stupid. Simple means so pure, sublime, so just full of just pure essence. You have heaven and earth, and the word earth there is important. It's the word eretz. You have the light and the darkness. There's a complete progression, and there's a binary thing going on. Heaven is paired up with the light. The light then gets paired up with the morning, and the morning gets paired up with the day. And it doesn't, and it says first, but it isn't in a numerical sense. That was the first age. That was the first duration. Okay. And then you get this other word, earth, and this is all in the day one. Earth is being paired up with darkness. And this is, again, which is being paired up with evening, which is being paired up with night. These are, in this binary concept of light and darkness, morning and evening, day and night, heaven and earth, are the foundation for every understanding you're going to have until we get to the new heavens and the new earth at the end of the book of Revelation. We close the book and we can go on forever. We never have to go through this again. Great job. But it's important to understand because, and I can't even begin to plug, I just want to say that, but if you read go back and read Genesis, and the spirit and waters, the light came forth, he spoke, and there was light. Something happened, but there's an implication here that behind all this, there was a spirit and there were waters that were sort of already there. You go into day two, and this is what I mean. This is where you get into the physics. This is why I love Kabbalah, because when I'm talking about Jewish Kabbalah, the deep mind they have to understand that there is a physics, there's an actual mechanism, laws that are operating. I mean, these are laws, morning and evening. Those are laws. When have you ever not had a morning or an evening? Or when have you ever not had a day and a night? These are eternal. You're talking about ageless, ageless ages, aeons that just go on and on. Day two, separation. If you have to look at this closely, there is a separation now of these waters. Now we're talking about the waters, okay? Waters, he puts an expanse in the midst of these waters, okay? And he called it heaven. The first expanse was called heaven. But see, as you begin to track, and there already were heavens, so we're now into like a second heaven. See, what this is really telling you are all the different dimensions. See, this is why it tracks, because if you understand, you know that there's, there are 10 dimensions, 10 Sephiroth. This is one, I love it. This is one statement from the Sefer Yitzhar. It says, there's 10, not 9. 10, not 11. It's 10, all right? There are 10 dimensions, and you can track them. You can count them. What these are, truly, in sense, best I can do is have some kind of abstract So you have these waters he separated, and this is where you get the Alph, the first letter, light. He spoke and there was light. These are two things that are going on now. These are the primordials. These are the firstborns. These are the original emanations. I mean, there's so many words that describe it. These are basically, and it's the Alph. You have the first letter. And the Alph that's exactly what it is. I've taught on this too. It's a pictograph that talks about the upper waters and the lower waters, and there's an expanse to them. There's a line. Go look at an Alph. It's a slanted line, and there's a dot above and there's a dot below. It's the separation of the day 2, the upper waters from the lower waters. Okay. Day 3, we get into those waters. So the waters below. So we've left the waters above. We're not even talking about this. Day 3, Genesis 1:9, he starts talking about the waters below the heavens. Okay. This is now a third heaven domain. And because it says these are the waters below the heavens from the separation. Okay. And in this place, he pulled together dry land. It's not the word earth. It's a different word. It's not eretz. It is the word dry land, and it is the word seas. So he pulled together the waters that were under in the lower heavens, and he even separated them out more, and he pulled part together and he made a dry land, and he pulled part together and he made seas. Okay. Now there is a physics to this. Remember, we're polysemous. There's many levels of meaning in here. And then on the and then still on the third day, then he went after he had some earth. And this is where we have to understand, and it goes back to the word eretz. See, because there's a word between land and eretz, and this is where it gets in. And I just love, because there is a whole concept in this way you really, and I will even try to put this in the footnotes. Philo has a couple of chapters where he just really flushes this out and gives you what they're talking about. This is a worldview that our patriarchs had, okay? We don't have it today. We got to relearn it. That's why we're all over the place. Okay, Earth sprouts vegetation. And this is way before, we're on day 5, I'm talking to the living souls that we're like part of, aren't even created or on the scene until the 5th day. But we do have a level of physicality, or a level of visibility, we shall say, of vegetation on the 3rd day. So we had the waters below, he separated, he made dry land, he made seas, and he made a vegetation. He made seed. And this really gets deep with the whole idea of code. When they understand how the letters, it really is a process of, I hate to use the evolution, of just how things unfold from simplicity as to the complexity, where these letters, like in Hebrew, is really a code for life, can combine and separate and dance and make different things. So on day 4, then you have another whole thing. They're put lights in the expanses, or in the separations of the heavens. So we really are talking different dimensions. Already we've got 3 or 4. This is the 4th separation of it in the expanses, and he put lights in all of them. So we have, so if day 4, he puts lights in the different expanses, in the expanses in the heavens that are above, in the expanses that are in the heavens below, the sun, the moon, and the stars. Most people understand the sun and the moon are luminaries that are very close to us. They really interface with us directly in our cycle of materiality here. The other lights in the heavens, in the different dimensions, in the different heavens, there is a sense of a little more distance. But it's not bazillions and zillions and whatever. We won't go there. And day 5, now this is where it gets really interesting. It begins to get into this whole concept of materiality. The Bible talks about this a lot, about in terms of world, things that are visible and things that are invisible. Like up in the beginning, you could be you're talking macrocosm and microcosm. You're talking about elemental things that are going on that are so subatomic and on a particle level, and yet are so massive and expansive. And this is really, and then the other analogy, and I've been through this in the Hebrew mind, it's also likened to Adam caveman in terms of really just the first Adam. I guess it gets so deep. I'm going to try to keep it simple. So day 5, we're on let the waters below. Okay, so now we're back here into day 5, Genesis 1:20. You read it. He talks about the waters below. Teen, swarm now. And you look at the words in the Hebrew, bad translations with living souls. Now we're getting into a place where we have actually very sophisticated, complex, see, this is kind of where you can kind of tie this into AI today and how they're making such sophisticated machine. There's a part of this that you can keep very, I guess, cut and dried or very scientific, mechanistic sort of. See, this is where people, when, if you don't understand that we're dealing with living beings and living Yahweh, people, the atheists are just, it's very mechanistic. Well, yes, in a certain sense, it is very mechanistic, but it's living, okay, breathing. This is Yahweh Elohim you're talking about, whatever. But he makes living souls in the heavens, and again, it's plural, in the heavens, and I don't even think it tells you there if it's the heavens below or above. So we will assume, because birds are a code word for angelic orders. These are living beings. Okay, so he's making, and I'm getting ready to get into this deeper part, and he makes, this is on day 5, sea creatures and swarmers. Now, again, our translations are terrible because, in my opinion, they really don't have any idea. They've lost the deep philosophical foundation that this is on. And a Jew would have, see, they would have been taught these things. This is why they go to Shiva. What do they call it? Yeshiva school. Okay, they're taught very early their old philosophical underpinning. Serpents and dragons, sea creatures is the word, it's the root word for tan, which is the word serpents and dragons, which is a whole race. Unpacking it today. The serpentine and the dragon, this is a whole race of beings that lives in quote unquote these seas, okay? And this other group of that are called swarmers that are turned, it works with this word that refers to creepers, skimmers, or crawlers. And I am going to unpack this concept. These are life forms that are living very close on and just below the surface. See, this is what I assume. This is in this category. You have a lot of the chthonic deities, earth, as I'm at, from under the earth. Okay, that's what's really in this category here. I did, I think, 2 videos ago talking about the chthonic deities. Day 6, this is the day 6. We are now creating, again, living souls. Souls that have che, have a duration to them. And what is being created are, so we've already made 3 things. Well, we've made 2 things. We've made sea creatures and swarmers, serpents, dragons, and creepers, or whatever word you want. Now we're making the behemoth, which is the animals or class of cattle. We're making rems, R-E-M-E-S, which is, we're making more creeping things. We're making, this is, you have to put these words together, che and eretz. So we're making che, which is the beast, because che is a word so interesting that it has another flip side meaning of beast of the earth. Eretz is earth. So we have che, beast of the earth. You've seen that word phraseology in your Bible. See, if you really look closely at your Hebrew, there's a behemoth who sometimes is translated beast, but it's really not the beast that should be translated, which is the che and eretz, which really should be translated beasts of the earth. They're totally different species. Who knew? Okay, so you have to really pay attention. Behemoth and the beasts of the earth are totally different Hebrew words, telling you these are different species. Then you have the last one, the Adam, the man, we are Adamic, which is to rule over these fish, beasts, cattle, creeping things, and other things. These all together, from day 5 and 6, we get what we call, which is the whole, in Judaism, the 7 species. Ever heard that the 7 species of living souls. And at Sukkot, when you are waving the lulav, those tree branches, see, this is all related. They have this deep understanding. We're the ones who, they wave at Sukkot. This is talking about 4 of the species. This is also referring back to 4 of the species in Ezekiel's, the chariot. So, but what I want you to see, and my reason for pulling this is to give a backdrop for this concept of living souls, which we're one of the getting plugged back in. Listen, if you are an unbeliever, of whatever category, you this is the plea, this is the cry that's going to hear. You can be born again. You can become plugged back in with a neshama soul life into the order of Yahweh, into the higher heavens, the realms, because part of the storyline is these lower, because, and this is just, how do you explain? I don't want to do it in a kindergarten way. Oh, you're going to burn in hell. No, we're talking the lower level life forms that have because all the sledge, there's another concept, the sledge, the heavy, the materiality that kind of like falls to the bottom. That's why you always have the abyss. It's a murky, so I said, watery abyss. It's a dense, murky, dark, clayish, mirey-ish, hellish place. Because all the sledge, all the filth, this is how the Hebrew says it goes down to the bottom. It just sort of sinks. Gravity just, whatever, just pulls it down. It's not light and ethereal, doesn't have pockets of light anymore. In other words, it's lost all of its light, more ethereal components that would keep it circulating higher and higher. It's coming in so heavy, you're weighted down with your sins. These are some of the philosophical concepts. You're weighted down with your sins. You can't fly anymore. You're just like, you're going to sink with the ship, because he's going to do a big garbage dump, so to speak, when he's part of the whole. So it's a perfect time. This is a time where a door has been opened to Gentiles, to people who are not inherently, because of whatever happened in the story, because of the war, really, with Hasatan, you got separated from the life of Yahweh. If you got separated from the life of God, through Yeshua, you can get that life back. This is really the basic bottom storyline. I'm trying to unpack it to teach it to build it in a much more deeper and meaningful way. He has made a way. He's made a door. That's why I'm telling you, he is the door. He is the entrance. In this time, for these 2 days, the Bible, there's to say that a day with the Lord is 1,000 years. Before the 3rd day, which we're going to enter. It's been 2 days since this Messiah ben Joseph. On the 3rd day, it's going to switch again. Everyone who has gone in through the door, okay, he is the door. See the door behind me? Wait this way. See the door? He's the entrance for anybody. That if you were separated from the life of God, this is what Paul was saying. It is the spirit of life now. The life-giving spirit that is in Yeshua, because he is a life-giving spirit. He will give you an eternal life again. I mean, I don't understand how people can't want it. It says it may be, but you know what? Even it says that people don't like to come to the light because their deeds are evil. Well, oh well, get over it. We all had evil deeds. We were all sinners. Everybody. Nobody's gonna be able to stand before goody two shoes. This is the point. Just humble yourself. Yes, we're all sinners, okay? And he has made an offer, a once-in-a-lifetime offer. And the thing that people are saying, it has an end point. It's going to end pretty soon, It's going to be like, okay, done. Just about everybody. Yahweh's going to say, look, everybody I know who wants this eternal life, it's about done. And it's a wrap. Nobody else is going to want it. I might as well just, cut it short. So I hope that you were blessed, and we can continue to dialogue and continue to flush these things out. Shabbat Shalom. Enjoy your week. In Yahweh's name, be blessed. Yeshua is the door.